On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very special treat. He's an NHL Stanley Cup champion from my personal favorite sports team, the New York Rangers. Now he's a mindset and leadership mentor who embodies the mindset of a champion. He's a dream chaser and just an overall juggernaut and a terrific human being. Please welcome Mike Hartman. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, great to be here. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, my man, and I appreciate you asking it. And I couldn't be more excited today for so many reasons. Number one, obviously, you're a Stanley Cup champion for my father and I's favorite team, but also, ironically enough, all the stuff that you're doing now with the mindset work and coaching and just helping people, we're going to manufacture some magic here today. You have my word.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Okay. We're going to start off a little weird. I'm just going to dive right in.
Go ahead.
Mike, what's your superpower?
My superpower. Well, I love helping people. So everyone says, like, what is your big superpower? I feel like I help people. I want people to maximize their potential. And I could read people very well. So that's why I'm on your show, because I said, what a great guy here. But overall, I can meet somebody and it's you don't want to judge somebody right away, but I have the ability to look at somebody and you can see what's real and what's not. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, because, at times, when I could be in a business meeting and I have to, keep it at a level that's fair. But pretty much I read people very well and read situations is probably one of my biggest attributes.
I love that. And I find that relatable as well, because especially nowadays, like on social media and stuff, it's very saturated and there's a lot of fluff, and you have to be able to read people and really see through people and see who's doing it for the right reasons and so forth. So I love that you said that.
No, that's true. It is true. And we all of us use social media to the best we can. I don't really use Instagram at all. I mean, my daughter tells me I should, but I use Facebook for people in our age group. Pretty much, we hit the late 40s and 50s and up, and we're getting up there. So I use Facebook. But it's funny, you look at social media and it looks like everybody's so happy and their life is great. And then a week later they're divorced or something happened. And so it's not all it doesn't look as it always appears to be.
No, and to be honest with you, I would say most of the time it's like that. And it's so funny that you said that. It's so true. You see pictures of, everyone's super happy and excited, celebrating this. And then a week later, the divorce. Like, I don't understand. I just saw a picture on Instagram, but I totally get it.
That's true. And I found that. But again, who are we to judge? I just saw something on TV the other day, and they first predicted, during this whole pandemic that, there's going to be a lot of babies. It's the year of babies. But then they realized because people are so isolated together, it's the year of separation.
Yeah.
And I saw that on TV and I thought that was really interesting, thinking, wow, they changed that quick. Because listen, we love the people we're around, but it's not normal to be around somebody all day long. Can you imagine then the parents and the moms that are homeschooling and the stress that they have to go through? And I live here in Charlotte, North Carolina now, and I would never say names. And I don't know this guy well, but I could tell that, he's isolated with his kids. He doesn't live too far from here. And I could see that I could see the look on his face that, man, we have to end this thing. I have to go back to work, let my wife take care of the kids. And that's not what the wife's responsibility is. Maybe she doesn't work, but I could just read him and he's about had enough. So, and the father should, it's an equal thing. It's not 50%, 50%, it's 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
But he's the one that tells me he works and she usually stays home, and, it's that compromise. But now they're both home and they're both, you could see, I could just read the situation well.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And what you said is funny to me, but also makes sense. The fact that in the beginning, they thought there'd be so many babies being born 9 months later, and then they kind of change it to possibly separation to divorce. It's true. You know your partner and so forth, but to be on top of someone 24 hours a day, I mean, even the best couples in the world, the strongest, you need a little bit of alone time or separation. That makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's not natural. Everybody needs their independence and their space, and especially when you're living in a place like New York City.
Oh yeah,
like you are, and there's not a lot of square footage. I mean,
True.
for those like you live in the Carolinas, you can get 1,500 to 4,000 square feet. But in New York, that's going to cost you, 10,000 a month.
Oh yeah.
So, when you're in 750 square feet, and I know in Hoboken, something like that could be 3,000 or 4,000 a month. It's still, come on, it's like, it's crazy. So I don't think it's natural when people are so close next to each other all the time.
100% agree with you. And we're going to jump all over the place. Obviously, we want to start at the beginning and give the audience a little feel for your journey. But I wanted to ask you this real quick. When did you officially become Mike 2.0?
Mike 2.0?
Like when did you really
That
get
was my grade point average, but I don't know. Who put that 2 point? Never seen that.
Like, when did you really become that next level version of yourself where like you knew, you were destined for something greater, you were going to follow your dream and never give up?
Well, you talk about the hockey or what I do today?
Hockey.
Okay, so when I was 5 years old, I had a dream of being an athlete, and I love baseball. And we came from a blue collar area of Detroit called Oak Park, and it was a privilege to go to Tiger Stadium to see the Detroit Tigers. So the story is, I went to the Detroit Tigers game, and I went year after year. And then my uncle took me to my first Red Wing hockey game, which I fell in love with hockey and baseball. And I was playing t-ball, and I remember asking my parents, can I play hockey? And at that time they said, well, hockey's expensive. And anyways, I ended up getting the Kmart skates and the Kmart gloves. And you might laugh, my first team I played on was the Oak Park Rangers.
Really?
Yeah. And I have a little picture of that too. I could show you at the end somehow. But I played for the Oak Park Rangers, and it was funny. Like that was the team I was on. My grandfather happened to be from Brooklyn. So he always said, oh, hey, you ever going to play for the Rangers one day? That was a thing. So my dream was to be a professional athlete. And then when I was about 9 years old, I went to, and being a New Yorker that you are, you'll find this interesting. I went to a Detroit Tiger game, and the Tigers were playing the Yankees, and I was hanging over. They were playing Pepper in the corner. You know what that is when they're playing Pepper? It's a little game that the Yankees were playing. Yes. And I stepped up on the dugout, and I was screaming and yelling and asking, can I have a ball? And they threw me a ball. And I waited after the game, and I had the ball signed. Thurman Munson's on the ball and a bunch of people on the ball. And I became a Yankee fan after that because my family did not like the Detroit Tigers. My grandfather being from Brooklyn, he was a big Brooklyn Dodgers fan, but then Yankees. So I became a fan, and I had a thing in hockey that I want to make it. I started loving hockey more than baseball. And around 13, I said, boy, I just want to be a hockey player. And I worked my way into what is called AAA hockey, struggled a little bit, still wasn't the best player. And I knew I always had to outwork other people. And to make the longest story short, it was my dream came true, and I ended up being a professional hockey player. But there was a lot of peaks and valleys along the way. So it was
just like every journey has. And I definitely want to touch upon them a little bit. To be a hockey player, in my opinion, or even like a diehard hockey fan, it's much different than the other three main sports. Like, it's a different type of breed. Would you agree?
It is, but even back in my day, I told this story because I'm all about stories where my sixth grade teacher, I was in class, and we had career day, and we had to stand up, and everybody had to say what they wanted to be. It was our music teacher. And listen, I have nothing bad to say about the music teacher. I haven't talked about this in something else I did. And I stood up and I said, the first thing that went around, and someone said, I want to be a fireman. I want to be a police officer. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. And they explained, I got up, he says, well, Mike, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I'm in sixth grade. And I said, well, I'm going to be a hockey player. He goes, no, you're not. And I said, yes, I am. He goes, no, you're not. And I said, I'm going to be. Here I am, a sixth, and I was not even playing at the highest level. I said, I don't agree with you. He says, excuse me, Mr. Hartman. He says, it's impossible for you to be a hockey player. And I said, Mr. Novak, it's impossible for you. Now I got in trouble. They called my dad, but I never backed down even for my dad. I said, hey, someone's telling me what I can't be. And my father, he got angry. The long story short, he says, you don't ever disrespect an adult. I said, listen, I always believe in that. So, even my kids now, my son's 23, he doesn't know what he wants to be. But at that age, I said, I want to be a hockey player. And it ended up working out. It
Yes,
almost
it did.
failed. But you mentioned Americans. At that time, there were 400 players in the NHL with 21 teams, and 10% were Americans. So there's only 40 to 45 Americans in 1986, 80, right around my first couple of years. Now there's 20% of, maybe even 25% of the players in the NHL are Americans. So yes, it was tough. There was different routes to go back then. I went to Canada to go to school in Toronto at 16, and now you could live in the United States. There's lots of great hockey, and you go to college and play. So it's a tough journey to get there. Like you said earlier, the journey is not easy.
Yeah. And when you said about 10% were American at that time, was the bulk of the rest Canadian?
Canadian, there are a lot of Europeans. Remember, there was a lot of Finns and Swedes and Russian. Then Russian guys came over about the 90s, right around close to or 89. Sorry, McGillney War, number 89. So right around the late 80s, a lot of the Russians were able to come. But before that, we had the Czechs. We had people. We had Yui Krupp from Germany. So we had players all over the world. But the bulk of the players were from Canada. And then it was spread out, the numbers around to probably 60% Canadian, 10% American, and the rest were European.
First of all, I admire you so much, Mike, because for you to have that mindset at such a young age, to respectfully say back to the teacher, it's impossible for you, maybe, but not for me. Like, not all kids have that in them at that age. And I really appreciate that. And it's no surprise as to, where you took this whole dream, and obviously your name's in the Stanley Cup and so forth. But I definitely admire that, especially from a young age. Like, you have to have that mindset in you to really go after, a big vision, or moonshot, as they like to say. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I like, if there's probably a better way to do it. I probably didn't at that age. You're not thinking at the time saying it's impossible for you. And but I was angry because that same teacher was talking about, listen, to be a musician is really impossible because the numbers aren't there. But if you said the word mindset, if I had the mindset now that, okay, it's impossible for me to reach my dreams, and it will be, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody will. So I've always took that upon it. And plus I liked it. I don't know, maybe there was something sick about me, but I liked it when people told me I was going to fail.
I love that too.
Because when I had people say there's no way you're going to make it, and then I didn't get drafted at 19 or 18, sorry, with the draft. I got drafted at 19, so I missed my draft year, and I was done. If you don't get drafted the first time around, most likely you're done. And it worked out that ended up getting drafted by the Buffalo Sabres. It was a great experience, and ended up making the team at 19. So it was beyond my wildest dreams.
I love that. And then also, when you were a little bit younger, you were a little bit undersized, right?
Yeah, being just about 6 foot is not, back then for being a physical player is small, but I wasn't a goon. I was too small. There wasn't any goons in that league. I said that there's a lot of big, tough guys. Like when you're playing against Dave Brown, or you're playing against you're like a guy like Joey Kocur when he was at Detroit, or Bob
Kocur.
Those guys will kill you.
They're not playing around, those guys.
No. But what I did was I was a physical player that liked to hit. So one of my assets was being physical on the boards, and I made a living doing that, puck control on the boards and hitting, and scored a few. But they didn't keep me there to score goals. They kept me to play physical. Or if I'm playing, like I played against some really good lines, like you're playing against Wayne Gretzky's line. Now, if you even come close to him, Baumgartner or one of the big guys are coming, Marty McSorley are coming for you. But my funniest story was, there's a few funny stories, and one of them is Dave Brown, and he skated next to me, and he was a really nice guy, kind of, but he's 6'5", tough as nails, and I'm next to him lining up. And he says, I'm begging you to please not make me have to do my job tonight. So that means don't run around and hit. But if I don't run around and hit and play physical, especially in Buffalo, which the stadium, the ice surface was a little bit smaller surface then, like the Boston Garden. They were small. I loved playing in those, the smaller surfaces, big stadium, small surface.
Sure.
And what happened was those guys would say, come on, we don't want to have to, you know, don't make us do this. Or, you know, they were like honest about it. But if I didn't do it, I didn't have a job. So I knew I had to do it.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone has a role to play, so to speak. Not everyone does the same thing. So I appreciate
Right.
that was yours, and you embraced it.
Yeah. You have a role, like in anything you do in your life, and you maximize that role, and you want to be the best at that role, or the best you can. And you always have in the back of your mind that somebody's coming. So if you do the numbers, there's like 4 left wingers on a team, 4 right wingers, and 4 centers. Well, I played the right and left side, which was good for me. So in Buffalo, I played right wing. So they were able to move me around, and I played a lot. I always played, maybe sat out a few times if they were mad at me in the years in Buffalo. Well, there's always a couple extra guys too. So, and they're coming in and out of the lineup, and they always have to call a few guys up during the year. And I was a career 4th line player. But Buffalo always played a lot of 4th lines. Now I got to the Rangers, they basically told me, you're going to be an insurance policy no matter what. And
who says this to
I
you?
hear that. That's what they said. But listen, Neil Smith, I am a big fan of Neil Smith, and I really like Mike Keenan. You know, people say a lot of things and they don't really know. He was tough on us. I'm not going to deny that. And he was tough on guys like he calls them support players, and that's what we were, like the Eddie Olchuk at that time, and Dougie Lidster and myself, and guys that would come in and out of the lineup. It was Nick Kyprios. It was tough. Like we were, you know, and it was funny. We talk about, you know, Rangers always carried a few extra guys because the salary, it wasn't a salary cap then. So, you know, the Rangers had the highest salary every year. I mean, and look at the guys that we had on our team. We had a big salary, and they've always kept like a few extra guys around. And that was in my benefit that year for sure.
Yeah. And we're going to dive all into the Rangers and all that. But real quickly, I want to take a step back. At first, the goal was to make the travel team, right?
Right.
Even before that. And I remember your uncle said something to you that really stuck out. Is that right?
Yeah, well, pretty much when I was younger, you play house league. So I played house league hockey, and then you move up and you're 5 or 6. And then I asked my parents if I could play travel hockey. So I played in a city called Southfield with some friends that I still talk to this day. And I was okay. I did okay. So the next year I played on another travel team. And then I told my father I want to play AAA hockey. And so I tried out for the AAA. That's the highest league in Michigan. You might know them as the CompuWares, the Little Caesars. Well, I happened to play for a team called Adre. And we went to Quebec, played in that big Pee Wee tournament. But I was really, I think maybe, if you can't say the worst on the team, but I was at the bottom. I was new to AAA hockey. It was new for me. It was not a great experience. And then played another year on that same team. It was not a great experience. And I went to CompuWare with a guy by the name of Dave LaMotta. Now he's an engineer for Ford. And he was a guy who I think of in my mind as a great coach. He put his arm around you and he says, listen, just have fun, enjoy the game. And, you know, we practiced our skills, and he was great. And it really gave you a lot of confidence. And then I went on to play for a guy by the name of Chris Corey, who was a Little Caesars coach, who I talked to this day. And he really took the time and patience to work with you. And he helped me. He helped me as a player. So if it wasn't for those coaches along the way and people helping, I don't think I ever would have made it.
And I love that mentality because, number one, something that I've always had too, and it's very obvious that you do as well, you have to be coachable. Like you have to put your ego aside and say, like, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room or on the ice. I want to be able to learn and absorb as much knowledge as I can. That's key, right?
That's what we did. So I learned, and then my father, Quince, by accident, worked for he was a photographer, was his hobby. So he worked he had his own business and built up a nice business. You know, as I was out in Canada, he started building this wallpaper company. It struggled in the beginning, and he really started building a really pretty large company after a while. And it took them some time, but I was already gone in Canada at that time. So we ended up, family moved to West Bloomfield, where I lived there for part of the year, went to school there for part of the year. But, he was the photographer for the Detroit Red Wings because he knew I was playing for Little Caesars, and he asked Mike Ilitch, can I take some pictures? And Mike Ilitch is the pizza guy that owned the Red Wings. And they invited my father down. They loved his pictures, and one got captured for Sports Illustrated.
Wow.
So they said, we love it. Why don't you be the team photographer on your schedule? So my father had the big strobe lights. He was taking pictures in the penalty box.
That's great.
The only rule I said was, when I play, please don't sit in the penalty box. So one night it was Gordie Howe coming to the stadium or something, and they were doing something with Gordie Howe and Steve Yzerman. And my father said, they've asked me to do it. I said, well, sit in the visitor's penalty box like you do. And the funny thing is that he did that night, and I had a fight with Probert.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, but I kind of, when I say fight, he's a heavyweight.
Yes,
and
sir.
I grabbed him. I try to throw punches. You can't even grab him because his shirt comes off. And he really gets, I just didn't want to, I wanted to protect myself more than fight him. But we had a little incident early on too. And it was during the game, and he said something to me. I said something back. Well, I fought him. And the funny thing was, he went to the visitor's penalty box where my dad was, and he knew my dad. And he said, John, I'm going to rip your son's face off tonight. Do what you got to do. But kind of like my father kind of laughed. So that's a funny story.
Your dad laughed. Your dad was really supportive of the hockey dream ever since day one.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah. I gave up going to school. I had a bunch of scholarship offers, like Michigan State, one of them. I went to school. Once you play in the OHL, you lose your eligibility. So I played Tier 2 in Toronto first. And I went there and did fairly well in school. And I had like Michigan State, Ohio State, several schools talk to me about playing Division I. And my mother was all excited. And then I met an agent, Gus Badali, who had Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and Dale Howardchuk. And one day I was in the car when I was like 16. And he goes, we're going to the dress with shorts and a collared shirt. I'm taking you for lunch. And we picked up Wayne Gretzky, and we golfed all day at 16.
That's great.
I had all those took picture in with Wayne Gretzky, and he ended up becoming my mentor, then agent, Gus Badali at that time. Then I ended up going with Ronnie Salser later on, a good friend of mine who I just interviewed. His father and mother were in the Holocaust. He's got a great story. But I ended up going to the route of junior, and I put all my eggs in one basket, and that basket it broke. I didn't do well the first year, but we talk about mentors, and I'll just tell you this quick story that the Detroit Red Wings, after I go to the draft, I don't get drafted. I'm ready to quit. Like really, I said, I'm done. I'm quitting. Kids went to college and get drafted. When you don't get drafted, you're done. I didn't want to play in a low minor leagues my whole life, or even maybe wasn't even good enough to do that. Well, I got a phone call, and it's what you do for a living. You got to think about mindset work. I got a phone call from the Detroit Red Wings. The draft was on a Saturday. Never forget it. I go home Sunday. About Wednesday, I get a phone call. It's Jimmy Devellano from the Detroit Red Wings. And he calls me up, and he goes, Mike? I go, yeah. He said, Jimmy Devellano. I go, hi, Mr. Devellano. Can I have you come down to Joe Louis Arena, and I'm going to take you for lunch, and I want to talk to you? I go, yeah. I get dressed. I call my mother. I call my father. I said, the Red Wings are interested in me. So I drive down to Joe Louis Arena, and I'm all excited. I make sure my father said, don't drive fast. You're going to get in an accident. I'm 18 years old. And I was down in the dumps. I was dumped. I didn't even work out after that because I was a little frustrated for those Sunday through Wednesday or Thursday when he called me. And I'm down there, and he said, sit down, let's talk. And I'm eating. He says, can I share something with you? I said, why do you think I brought you here today? I said, to give me a tryout, right? He goes, no, quite the opposite. First of all, we can't give you a tryout because you're in a development league and you have to be drafted. And then when you're done, you can get a tryout. But number one, you're not the biggest guy. Number two, you're not the fastest guy. Number three, you do everything okay, but you do nothing really well. I said, okay, I'm not feeling great about myself anyways. He goes, but wait a sec. He says, you're a nice boy. He said, that's what he called me. Nice boy. I'll never forget this. And I said, okay. He says, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you a plan. And the plan is going to be the Detroit Red Wings training program. And I want you to follow this for the rest of the summer. And then the plan is going to be, I'm not going to bore you with it. He goes, I want you to have 7 shots on net a game. I don't want you to fight these big guys, because why fight? You're not doing anything for your team. You're fighting to fight. I want you to play physical. And if the big guys come to you, don't fight at the end of your shift when you're tired. Fight on your terms, but don't fight. You could skate, you could play the game, you could hit, but I need you to do something really well, and it's be a real hard worker and outwork everybody. And here's my plan, yada, yada. And when you're 20 years old, I'm going to give you a trial to the Detroit Red Wings. I go, wow, Mr. Devillano, thanks. That summer, I followed this plan. I started training and running. That next year, I got out of the team I was in. Thank goodness they traded me from Belleville. Right away, I wanted to be traded to North Bay. And the coach took me under his wing, one of the toughest all-time coaches, who, if you remember, he had that big brawl in '86, Bert Templeton with Canada. And I got drafted by the Sabres. And then, I even recently thanked Mr. Devillano, and I thank him in a little book that I wrote for my kids, but he gave me a plan, just like the experience, what you do, Craig. You give people a plan, and without a plan, you're stuck. So, I know I'm talking a lot, but it touches me and gives me butterflies, because if Jimmy Devillano didn't call me, I'd be ended up owning a sports store or doing something. My father, we were looking at different things, right? I ended up, going back to school anyways. I would have gone, who knows where I would have been, but it was because of Mr. Devillano. He said, here's a plan. And he even called me after the draft when I got drafted by a different team. And he says, I'm proud of you. And we were going to bring you in. And they even tried to trade for me at one time, he said, in my earlier years. But yeah, so talk about mentors. I know we talk about like David Meltzner helping, and we know similar people. And that's what it's all about. That's why people need your service, because without help with someone with the mindset work and helping us stay on track, people get off track. So those were my mentors and those who have helped me.
I love all of this. And for the audience that's going to see this, you'd have to surgically remove the smile from my face, because Mike's speaking my language. 2 things. Number one, meeting Wayne Gretzky, for those of you who live under rocks, greatest hockey player of all time, arguably, at 16 years old, what an experience that must have been. Even just to be around people like that, it elevates your game. And then obviously the whole thing with Jimmy and getting drafted, especially after thinking that, this dream may not come to fruition, and you were a little bit down on yourself. And I love the vulnerability and how honest you are and just being so vulnerable. When you miss the draft, so to speak, or something like that happens, it's very easy to get dejected. And I think there's 2 paths, right? Like, number one, you can just give up, pack it up and say that didn't work out. Or number 2, you can just keep pushing forward like you did, and then you get drafted. I have to ask you, the day that you found out that the Sabres were drafting you, what was that feeling like?
Well, I read in the paper the day before that, because they don't draft 19-year-olds that often. Like Randy Burge got drafted. He's a guy who ended up being a good Boston Bruin, played for Buffalo, Washington, but not a lot of us get drafted at 19. And so I just had that hope, and I listened. I had that hope from Mr. Devillano that he was going to give me a chance to go to the Detroit Red Wings and play in the minors and maybe work my way up, or I just wanted that chance to prove myself. So that day comes where I hear that I'm getting drafted, and I didn't go to the draft. I already sat through you don't go to the draft once you're not drafted. So I'm sitting in my place, in my mother's place in West Bloomfield, Michigan at that time. And I get a phone call from my dad. He goes, Jimmy Carson's dad just called. I go, Jimmy Carson? Jimmy Carson went 2nd overall. And his dad called my father. I mean, talk about a classy guy. Called up because I played with Jimmy a little bit. And Jimmy got traded for Wayne Gretzky, if you look back in the day, from Edmonton to LA to Edmonton. But he was in that big deal. The neat thing was I couldn't believe it. Then I got a call from Don Luce. And Don Luce said, welcome to the Buffalo Sabres. And he drafted me. He was number 20. I talked to Don Luce to this day. He's one of my favorite all-time people. He helped me as a person, and he's in the same business that you're in and we're in. He's in the mindset work now and helps out people. But just it's weird how all these years later, they made me wear number 20, and I never understood. I wanted 18 was available, and or actually, I wasn't good. I was going to wear number 20. There was a couple numbers available that I was going to wear, and not even 18, sorry, but it was another 27. And then Larry Playfair came later. I think he wore 27, but it was available. He goes, no, you have to wear 20. And then the trainer, Jim Pizzatelli, said, between you and I, don't say anything. Don Luce drafted you in the 7th round. You're going to wear number 20. And I said, you can give me number 500. I don't care. I'll wear it. So that's how that came about. And it was listen, I know you're a big Ranger fan. I love playing for the Rangers. It was a dream come true. Unbelievable organization. But being drafted the Buffalo Sabres was like, it was beyond fathomable for me at that time.
One of those moments that you'll never forget for the rest of your life. So special and so deserving. And I love that you're a big believer and advocate in hard work and heart over talent all day, because how many players have we seen in any sport really that have all the talent, but they don't have maybe necessarily the work ethic or the heart? And I believe the hard work trumps talent all day.
It does. And people will ask, oh boy, what does it take? It's very simple. If you could outwork the person across from you in your business, in your life, no matter what you do in sports, if you could outwork them every time, it may not happen, right? But something good along the line is going to come. And that's the whole key, is working, but working smart. So working on all areas of your game as a hockey player, but really working on that one that's going to be good. I remember my good friend, Marty Quarters, who we grew up in Detroit with. We would get ice at Lakeland Ice Arena because I knew the gentleman that ran the rink. And Marty would throw me pucks 100 miles an hour around the boards. Now, Marty is a coach. Marty was my best friend growing up in Oak Park. We played ball hockey together, hockey. We played on some of our spring leagues together. Now, Marty coaches a team in Wisconsin, and he's a couple games away from going to the Nationals for that. But he, people love playing for him, and because he does all these little things that we believe in today. And we, way back then, we were just throwing pucks. I go, Marty, throw them 100 miles an hour around the boards. And I made sure that every puck I'd have to stop every puck in my feet, and, however I would stop the puck correctly to put me in good body position to get it out. And I made a living doing that. And it takes repetition is sometimes your best friend.
Yeah, love all of that. It makes perfect sense to me. And before we dive into the Rangers and also what you're doing now, Mike, I have to ask you, when you play professional sports at the highest level, like you do, and in my opinion, hockey is the toughest sport there is, what's the mindset required to battle through injuries, which can obviously take a toll not only on you physically, but mentally?
It's tough, especially as a player. So when I was at the Rangers, I almost lost my eye. Put me out for a long time the year we won the cup. I missed games. I had a slap shot in the face when James Patrick was there and he got traded. It was an accident. I was in front of the net, and I got a slap shot right in the face, and it broke my orbital bone. And the worst part was I almost lost my eye. And thank goodness I didn't. In fact, the doctor came in, and they still work for the Rangers, and they don't forget it. They came in and they said, listen, there was a girl that was just here that had a softball just tossed in her eye, and she lost her eye. You had a slap shot from James Patrick. Your orbital bone is broken. So then I couldn't see out of my eye. I had to wear a visor. And then I come back, and it was just, we had neutral site games in England, and we played the Toronto Maple Leafs, and just came back. And my first fight, this, Tocchet comes at me in the garden and wants to fight me. And I had to do it. So you're like, holy crap, you're still timid. And then I've had other injuries, broke my jaw, shoulder, different. I've had a lot of different things, and you have to come back. And and I'm not afraid, I'm not this guy that's going to give you like this false description of myself. I was a career fourth lineman. people say, why do you say that? I said, because it's reality. I wasn't Mark Messier. I wasn't Glenn Anderson or Adam Graves. I was a career fourth liner. And when you get hurt, you don't want to even tell them because they're going to pull you out of the lineup. And all of a sudden they call up a kid that plays well, and you see it all the time. You're done. And that's the hardest part, being a player when you're in the lineup. It's tough. And I tell people, even as a hockey player, but I had a one-way contract, which didn't matter. They could still send you down. You got to clear waivers. But when I played in Buffalo, I was told in the beginning that I went down to Rochester my second year, and Mike Foligno put his arm around me. And, you're 19, you're young and dumb. He goes, Mike, it's 60 miles from Buffalo to Rochester, but it's 120 back. Now, I know I was an average student in school, and I'm thinking, wait a second, 60 miles down and 120 back. But what he meant was, when you're down, it's twice as hard to get back up here. So when you're down, you better do well, or you don't want to go down. And when you get hurt, they can't just send you down right away, but then they could send you down for conditioning or whatever it is. But you never want to go backwards. That's for sure.
Yeah, I understand that. And I appreciate the grit and everything that you stay on. And listen, what you're saying makes sense. We have to be realistic with ourselves. But you had a very important role, and you don't want to miss out any time with any role, really. But specifically yours, I totally get that. So obviously we have to talk about the Rangers. Otherwise, my father would beat me if I didn't talk about it with you, because he's the biggest Ranger fan of all time. And I don't think he's missed a game in 80 years. So how did you land on the Rangers? And tell me a little bit about the experience specifically that year and some of the legends on the roster, including Mike Keenan. My dad made me ask you today, what's it like skating and being coached by Mike Keenan?
Well, I'll start with the first, how did I get to the Rangers? And I just found out how I got there in our 25th anniversary. And when I was 16, one of the nicest, greatest guys I ever met was Neil Smith. And I was in Canada playing, and I went to an OHL game in Toronto, and there's Neil Smith, who worked for the Red Wings. And I went up and said hi to him because I knew him. And I said, hello, Mr. Smith, my name's Mike Hartman, and I might be playing in the OHL next year. He goes, oh, sit down, Mike. And he talked to me like a friend. He was great. He was the head scout for the Detroit Red Wings. So then time went on, and get drafted by Buffalo. When I was in the hallway, and Neil Smith said to me when I was with the Sabres, you're playing really well. He goes, you've really developed into a player. He says, it's tampering if I tell you you're going to play here one day, but you never know when our cross will pass, our pass will, we'll cross again. And I said, oh, okay, like, great. Then as time went on, I was playing for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I get picked up in the expansion draft by Tampa. That year, got traded to the Rangers for Randy Gillen. And Neil says, I'm bringing you in. We have a lot of guys, but this was the year we didn't make the playoffs. You're going to play in and out of the lineup as an insurance policy. We have our left wingers, but I want you here. We should make the playoffs. We lost the playoffs by a couple points that year. Mike Keenan comes in. I'm still with the team because I can't believe I was there the whole year in reality, because, they wanted to go with certain guys who they want. And I stayed, and Mike, and then Neil told me like a few years ago, he said, how I built this team with people I knew. I knew Adam Graves in Detroit. I knew, of course, of Mark Messier, who we had Bookable and Tikkanen and McTavish and Glenn Anderson. All those guys are Edmonton Oilers. And Steve Larmer knew Keenan very well. So I wanted to put together a team of people that had character that I knew. And I said, wow, I had chills. I had no idea. He goes, yeah, and we kept you. And I thanked him and I think he's a gentleman. Now we're going to talk about Mike Keenan to answer your question. He was hard on me. He was tough on me. And when you play in 94 on that team, and it was Kyprios and I that were rotating, and Eddie Olchuk would come in, and all of us, we didn't know, we were friends, and we would practice, play hard, and they would say, Hartman and Olchuk, you're going for warm-ups, and we didn't know who was going to play. In fact, one time Mike Keenan called me in the morning. We were playing the Islanders. He goes, you're going to play, but you're not going to play. Be ready to play, Graves is not feeling well, so I don't think you're going to play. I think he's injured. His back is bothering him. But I know you're in the lineup to play, but don't plan on playing. Be ready to play. We'll see here at 5:30. And I looked at Kyprios. I can't exaggerate that. We just laughed. I said, playing that night. But Mike always kept us on edge. And I really like Mike Keenan. I thank him. I have a Stanley Cup in the other room. Because of him. My name's on the Stanley Cup because of he and Neil Smith and the team. And I really like Mike Keenan as a person, but his way of motivating was old school back then. So you might read all this bad stuff, but he's really, and some players will disagree. They'll come out, oh no, he was it. You have to understand him. All he wanted to do was win. And all he wanted is to get the best out of everybody. And the funny thing too, we talked about it with Glenn Healy once. I remember Kyprios played. In the first shift, he scored. The next shift, he got in a fight. The third shift, he almost put a guy through the glass and he stopped playing. And, I said, oh no, I'm done now for 2 nights. Now Kyprios is scoring and I'm going to be done for a few games. I ended up playing the next night. But the funny thing was, Kyprios was walking in the hallway with his head down and he looked at, and you never really went into his office to tell you, why am I not playing much? I think Mike on a rare night said, what's wrong with you? He goes, I don't know, Mike, what's going on? I played the best I can. He goes, I knew that's all I can get out of you. He goes, that's all. He goes, I got everything I can out of you. I couldn't get anything more. And so then I played the next night in Toronto and where he's from. And then 4 nights later, he played in Detroit, where I'm from. So I was pissed I didn't play in Detroit in front of my family. He's mad that he's not playing in Toronto in front of his family, big Greek family. We play junior together. He's on, you can listen to him and you would laugh, but we go back and we just had to say, we realized that we couldn't be jealous. There was no jealousy on that team. Eddie Olchuk is like a brother to me. I played in Winnipeg with him. Nick Kyprios is like family. We were best friends in North Bay. And we always pulled for each other. I scored a goal and Nick came up and gave me a hug, my first goal. And we didn't have any jealousy. So if you talk about how to win, that's what we did. And it wasn't us against Mike Keenan. Mike Keenan was our boss, but he really had you on edge every day. Now, did you like that? No, who likes to be uncomfortable? But I really like Mike Keenan to this day. I've had great conversations with him the past several years. And even when I played for him, he called me during the Stanley. We're already on the roster, so we're not going anywhere. They made the trade deadline. He called me on like 4 nights before the opening night. He said, I just want to tell you to keep your head up. I want to tell you to be ready. We have our guys that we're going with every night. Chances are you're not going to get in. Maybe you will if somebody gets hurt, but you're a part of this team. You're a part of this family. And I really appreciate what you've done all year. And we need you to be there for us. And that was like, wow. And I know he called a couple other guys. And to me, I don't forget about stuff to this day. So tell your dad that he's a good person at heart. He's a smart guy. But times are different today because the way, like my kids, my daughter's 27 and really smart. And my son is 23 and he's a smart kid. And you say one thing to them, they're going to, oh no, Dad, why'd you say that? You couldn't have that back then.
I know. So, you have to be so politically correct and stuff now, but I appreciate everything that you said, especially by Mike giving you a call. That's something that'll stick with you forever. I have to ask you, Mike, because in my opinion, he's the best in any sport. What makes Mark Messier such a good and effective leader?
When he talks, people listen. And I know you like stories because people don't want to hear just another boring sports thing. But Darren Langdon came to our team and he just got called up the next year in 90. He got called up for a couple of games that 94 year, I think. And he came to our team. And in the morning, they have the guy comes in before tells Darren, you need to get to the rink at 9:00. What do you mean? We have to get there usually at 9:30. I need you there at 9:00, Mess said. Well, Mess tells you to do that. And the guy is sizing him up and looking at what's your shoe size, and they're looking at his clothes. Well, Darren didn't have any money. He's a kid from, I think, Newfoundland. Where there, it's like things are on the half hour there. It's kind of the joke. I think it's like, if it's 11 o'clock in Toronto, it's 12:30 in Newfoundland or whatever. It's a little, he didn't have the nicest clothes. And next thing you know, that day, the guy comes back and has 3 suits for him, custom made with shoes. And Mark Messier says, "Welcome to the NHL." And it's not that it's not the money or anything like that, but he'll take you on your wing. I remember I was playing in Florida and Mess said, "Hey, we're all going out for dinner." And I said, "Damn," I said, my mother's in South Florida. A lot of my family moved there. I said, "Mess, I'm going to come, but my mother's here." He goes, "Oh, geez, your mom's here." He goes, "Don't even worry about it." I said, "Nah, I don't want to miss." He goes, because sometimes Mess, you treated everybody. And we had meal money and the guys did well, but he says, "I'm taking everybody out." So that night I come back. Well, the next morning we practiced and I was told I'm not dressing. Mark Messier went into Keenan and because I was playing well. And next thing I know, Colin Campbell says, "No, you're playing tonight." I ended up scoring my goal that I, in front of my mom that night. If you Googled it, the one goal I played a lot and it was because of Mark Messier. And I go, "Mess, thank you." He goes, "Don't ever thank me." He goes, "We're here to win. We're a family." And I go, "Holy cow." I played because he thought I didn't play in Detroit. I was playing well. And when I went out there, I was doing everything I could do. I worked hard every day and I played. And my mother saw me play and score in Florida because of Mess. So it's not so much what he says, it's just what he does. And it's just like, he's really a special, you can't explain it. Like he has a way of calming guys and he treats everybody. And you might hear the Benny Patrizzi story where this guy, he was hanging outside of Rye Playland, I believe. I don't know the full story. And he was always there and Mess said, "Why don't you come in?" And he comes in, next thing you know, he's doing towels in our practice rink. He was like 80 years old. Now, when you get a ring, they break the seal of the ring. And only so many people get a ring. But we didn't get our rings to the next year, to 95. And we were in the room and Benny Patrizzi is passing out. Benny's passing out towels. And Messier says, "Everybody shut the music off. Benny, come here." And Benny's going, "Oh, what did I do?" "Nope, come in the middle. Come in the middle of the room." And Mess hands him a box that, the ring is in. He goes, "We're all family." And he goes, "What's this?" And he's shaking and Benny opens the box and there's a Stanley Cup ring for Benny. He's crying. And he gave Benny, the towel guy that was hanging outside, 80 years old. Mess invited him in. Next thing you know, he's a Stanley Cup ring that was all done by Messier. I know.
Chills.
Yeah. I know it was Mess. Yeah. And who does that? Like Benny Patrizzi, he was if you hear Mess talk or even Glenn Healy or any of the guys, they say, "Listen, if you're the guy that passed out towels, if you're the guy that helped, we had the trainers, it takes everybody to win a championship and we're all family. There isn't anybody ahead of anybody else." And so those are things that people don't really hear.
I love that. I just got chills and I got emotional just hearing that. And everything that you explained about the 94 team, like Neil Smith gathering everybody that he knows, that he has confidence in as a human, translated to, the cohesiveness as a team. And then obviously with Messier, making sure everybody on the roster, to the towel guy, to everyone, was incorporated in the rings, in everything. It's no secret as to how you guys had so much success, especially with all those big personalities like a Messier, a Leach, a Mike Keenan, and so forth. You guys were a big gelled family that's so important.
And you know who the player was that year?
Who?
Eddie Olchuk. They voted him the player's player, and he didn't play. He didn't play in the end. They voted him because he came in every day and he was positive and he brought good energy in. And McTavish said it best: didn't matter what you did, but if you bring in good energy. And Eddie O scored 40 goals. He's one of the all-time American leading scorers, but he didn't make the lineup. If you look, I think there's not one American that scored. There might be Pat LaFontaine. I have to go back and look, or McDonald, but if you look, I think he scored 30 goals 7 straight years. I don't know the exact stat. And he's not playing, and he's a role player for the Rangers, and he got Players Player Award because of his attitude. And they voted. and they all voted for him. We all voted. I mean, Eddie was our player's player award. And on the ring, it says heave ho. And we go, because every day, Eddie, after we'd stretch, he'd go heave ho, heave ho. And it says heave ho on the rings. So you don't even, sometimes leadership isn't many words that are spoken, but it's the actions that are taken that will make a difference. People don't even hear these things. And when they say, tell me about Messier, you can't even, what do you want to know? There's like so much to know.
I knew we'd manufacture magic here today, but these stories are really, like, I feel them in my soul, and I agree. And I appreciate everything from the leadership to just the aura that you guys all had together and the cohesiveness. Like I said, it's just so special. What was it like towards the end as you guys actually won? And then also, what's it like compared to other places playing in Madison Square Garden for the New York Ranger fans? Because I got to tell you, Ranger fans are different than Knick fans. Ranger fans are a special breed.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, because, you know, we fly, it's great playing in that division, but we played the Islanders. Remember, we played the Islanders, and I remember we just beat the Islanders, and you're not going to fly to Long Island. We take a bus that we stay in the hotel, and we take a 45-minute, I think it's maybe an hour and 15-minute bus. And I remember on the way back, we turned on the 70s music, and we were singing on the bus. Guys were singing, like, you know, and Nick Kiprios was singing, and I don't think Mess was singing, but we were kind of just having fun singing. And I go, what a fun team. And then when we came back, we also had a barbecue outside, and we eat very well, but we had 7 days off, and we skated hard, and we said, guys, we have hamburgers and you know, we have salad, guys. So Joey Koster was making, I'm on the right on the water in Rye Playland, backs up to the ocean. And here we are flipping hamburgers, and now it's hot outside. It's like end of May. And I go, what a dream come. I looked at myself. I said, what am I doing here? Like, holy. So playing for the Rangers is great. Playing in Madison Square Garden, it was amazing. But yet there isn't like everybody, I say everybody should experience, if you're an NHL player. And look, Gretzky wanted to go there at the end. A lot of players, Bure, a lot of guys say, I want to go to New York because it is a great place to play, but they can be tough on you as well.
Sure. New Yorkers tell it like it is. They don't sugarcoat it.
Right. You know, so it's, so that part I say was just like, you know, sometimes I was a kid from Detroit. My music teacher said, you're not going to do anything. And here I am playing next to Mark Messier, and played on his line sometimes, you know, because, you know, they'd spot us in with different guys. The fourth line would go, and he would say, okay, Hardy, you're going with Graves and Messier next shift. Okay. You know, play really solid defensively or whatever we had to do. And yeah, I sometimes look back, and when I grew up in Detroit, and they had Hockey Night in Canada. So as a kid, I even told Messier this. He looked at me with like four eyes. I said, do you know, I grew up in Detroit at 13, and you were my hero. And he and Clark Gillies, who I also played with. And I told Mess, I said, I used to watch you on Hockey Night in Canada when I was 13 years old. Here I am playing with you. And he gave me like a hug, and he was really good to me all the way through. But we had, like, you know, Kevin Lowe and Glenn Anderson and Tikkanen and Buka Booms and Graves. We've been friends forever, Gravy and I, even before he made it. But that old Edmonton Oilers team, we had a lot of those players, McTavish.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're playing with them. And people didn't realize, then we had a guy like Greg Gilbert, who went to the Stanley Cup Finals a couple times with the Islanders, has a Stanley Cup ring. The all-time, like Steve Larmer, games played, great player. People don't even talk about him. Zubov was our leading point getter. I mean, then we had guys like Mateau that would come in. If you look at that, we had an all-star team. If you really look at the guys on that.
And the Russians, right? Kovalov, Nemchinov.
Oh, Nemchinov was a great player in Russia, great player for us. Kovalov ended up being a star in the league. That kid was unbelievable. Zubov was our, you know, a great Russian player. I mean, we had a real good team.
Leach.
Oh, don't forget about Leachy. I mean, one of the best defensemen ever to play the game. So there's not, you know, so to play 30 some odd games on a Stanley Cup team, and I look back, something said, are you disappointed you didn't trust? Well, yeah, back then you want to play in the finals, but when you're part of that team. It's like if you watch the Yankees and what's his name, Carmine, that would
Yes.
catch and come in and out. I love guys like that because I could relate to him. And I watch him, he gets a big hit, plays great, but he's not playing the next night. That's just your role. And if you have a bad attitude, and you teach this in your business, if you have a bad attitude, you won't fit. It doesn't work. You're done at that level. And I love Carmine. Now he's in Detroit. I'm a baseball fan. I'd watch the Yankees play the last several years, and he'd come in and he would do well. He had a backup. He was a backup catcher, barely played, but when he did, he made it special. And that's what you have to do when you're a bubble player.
Absolutely. In a word, how would you describe the feeling when you saw Matt Toe score that goal in double overtime against the Devils?
It was great. When you're part of I think the fans get more excited than the players do. And I was really, of course you're excited, but it's a long year. We started off in England, and I said, oh man, this is done. And this is amazing. It was great. Wow. We just want to see, you have chills, and you were a small piece to a big puzzle, and it was great. But yeah, it was unbelievable. It was when Mateau scored that goal, then we got on and went to play the Vancouver Canucks. Oh man, we're finally, because we had a lot against us because people in New York said, oh, the jinx is on us and the curse, and yeah, and here we go again. And we could have, I don't know how the fans would have reacted if we lost that game. Can you imagine? And
oh, forget about it.
But it opened doors for the rest of Mateau's life. For that, it opened doors for me as well, and all the guys. And we go back and we haven't missed a beat.
I love that. So special. And then when you guys obviously eventually win, you're hoisting that cup. What was that like, and how big was the party?
The party was great. I regret, there was a list of things that we could have done, and we did stuff. We were at the, and it was great. We had different parties, and there was a list who wanted to go to Yankee Stadium and take batting practice. And I regret not doing that because I love baseball so much. The PR guy asked me, Barry, oh my God, Barry Beck. I can't think of his last name. But Barry said, hey, do you want to take batting practice? I go, no, I'm all right. And I missed out on that. And I would have loved to probably have done something like that.
We could still get that done for you.
Let me know.
Absolutely.
But besides that, there was just so much going on. And you know what? And then you get the Stanley Cup for a day. I had it in Detroit. And what I did is I brought it to a pizza place. I told the pizza place, Buddy's Pizza in Detroit, you take care of my family and I and everybody that comes in, and we'll advertise for free that anybody can come and take a picture with it. And that it was like a mile long, people outside waiting to take a picture in the back where we had the cup. And it was, then I took it to my friend's house, and he thought they were drinking out of it, showering with it. One guy was running down the street with it, like they wanted to. They could have dropped the thing. And back then we didn't have Pritchard's his name. I think nobody was guarding the cup. So Noonan sent the cup to me, put it on a flight, and you can only imagine what it smells like, right? From alcohol. I get it in Detroit, and I had it for actually a day and a half because it was they were picking it up to take it to over the border from back to Toronto. So that was a cool time.
Yeah. And these memories are bringing back so many good feelings. And just thank you for sharing all those unbelievable stories. Absolutely priceless. So when hockey was over for you as a professional, how did you eventually segue into what you're doing now, which I think is so special and so important for the audience to hear, Mike?
Well, I got involved with I started off owning a gym, and I realized it wasn't for me. I had it for years and it did well, but it wasn't me. And I then one day I was leaving the gym, and I ran into another former athlete, football player in the NFL. He goes, "You don't look completely happy." I said, "Well, I'm having this identity crisis. I don't see myself being being like a gym owner with it just wasn't me." And then he says, "Well, you should try this assessment." And I took this assessment. Next thing you know, I loved it, and I became a coach. Took some years off. I did it for like 17 years. At a time, I took about 4 years, the last several years off, and now I'm back doing more leadership work, and we do like customer loyalty work is what I'm doing. So we have like a leadership e-learning course, and I help people through that. So that's the main thing I'm doing right now. And I've learned from some good leaders, and I apply what I've learned. And I've also met some really good people in business. So I take the business knowledge that I've had and the hockey people I've been around and watched how they won championships, and I try to apply it to what I'm doing today.
Yeah, I love that. And how important is it for people in any field or any age to have a mentor?
It's really important. Like I said earlier, if I didn't have Jimmy Devellano, if I didn't have my Bantam coaches, my baseball coach, who I can't forget, a guy in Detroit, Steve Clarefelt, who helped me, my coaches that like Mr. Devellano going to bat for me and caring about me. Why would he care? Like, that type of stuff is so important. And I think without mentors, it's tough to do things on your own. Not saying you can't, but it's so important to have a guy like you, Craig, with what you do, helping people, because they don't realize, well, how can he help me? Well, you're that roadmap for them, and you're the guidance, and you keep them on track. And I could say this, it's the littlest things and details that make a difference. And I know you do that in your business, and if you could help people doing that, it's going to help them, mindset way, mentally, physically, financially, but they don't really see it, and until they start working with you, right? And then they'll get it after that.
100%. I love that you said that. It's so true, because for some reason, people are like skeptical. They'll spend money on everything, but when it comes to investing in themselves, that's the thing that they're scared of most. But once they make the most important bet that they can make on themselves, the results are staggering. And I love to see that. All the structure and the discipline that you've carried through your career, Mike, specifically being the hardest worker, which I admire so much about you. You still have that today. You still work out early and work out and so forth.
I'm up every day. We moved back from Hoboken. I've owned a place here in Charlotte for 18 years, and we're here. And I wake up every day to walk one of my best friends, my dog, 16, make sure he's taken care of, and then I do a body weight workout. I work out. I take one day a week off.
You still got it.
Yeah. So I used to do running, but I can't run. My knee's been bad lately. It's just been sore, like maybe tendonitis, but I just do a very safe workout, just core stability, body weight, push-ups, squats, isometric. So I try to stay as healthy as I can. But I like my cookies and my junk food here and there. But
hit us with the bicep pose, Mike.
No, you're not looking at not much there.
And also, I know, because I do my homework, because preparation breeds confidence, and I'm a huge fan of yours. You do a lot of journaling too, right?
I do.
I love that.
Yeah. So I make sure, and I can't exaggerate this, but I have my journal right here. I'm afraid to open it. And my goals, like I have a goal chart. I have my journal. I mean, I can't exaggerate. I don't know if you can see it. It's right here. And I do it to give me a peace of mind. It's something that I teach others to do. And if I teach somebody to journal, you should be journaling yourself. And I do that. One of my biggest things, I'll be at Starbucks early in the morning with a coffee, and I have my breakfast there sometimes to get out of the house. The weather's beautiful, like this, to 70 degrees today. And I do my thing and just try to keep plugging away.
That's it. I love that. A quote that I saw that you said or wrote, I have to ask you about it because it really speaks to me, is this: the ache of unfulfilled dreams must surely be the worst pain of all.
Yeah. You know what? If you're not dreaming big, and I call it, I tell people there's 3 types of goals. There's the measurable goal that's really important. It's got to be measurable. It can't be like, if I ask any kid, my goal is to play junior hockey, then college and the pro. That's a nice dream, but we have these measurable goals, and it's something that's attainable. Like 7 shots on net, like the I told you earlier on that Jimmy Devellano said. And then we have short-term goals. That's okay. In the next 3 months, how are we going to put these actionable goals together? And then the vision goals, the dream. And you have to see that dream, like I said earlier. You have to see yourself playing in Madison Square Garden. You have to see yourself doing it. You have to see yourself, Craig, being the experience has to be the number one coaching business in the world and helping people. Because if you don't see it, nobody else will. So it's having that dream of actually doing it, but really believing in that dream. And we're going to get frustrated. And if you can look at yourself in the mirror at the end and say, you know what, and we don't reach our goals or dreams all the time, but if you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I've done everything possible to do it, then you can go to sleep at night. But you don't want to be one of those guys I see in a bar. Oh, I could have played football, or I should have done this. And I meet those guys. I hurt my knee, and I gave up after a while. I didn't like my coach. There's people that fail, which is okay. And there's people that are, I don't want to call them failures, but people that if you're just quitting and not giving it what you have.
I know exactly what you mean.
I failed thousands of times at things, right?
But that's because you tried and you attempted it.
Right. So that's it. Live in that
took a shot. Yeah. And it's the same thing I tell my clients or the audience. We have a big audience now. I always say, the scariest thing you can do is not take that shot, because we're not going to be here forever. And the reality is if you identify your passion and what you want to do, more than likely you could put together a strategy and be effective at it, or you can learn what didn't work and apply it again.
Listen, the other day I did, and we do it as coaches. The other day I said, you know what I would have done differently? I would have quit earlier, because I thought I wanted to be a coach when I was done in pro hockey, but I really didn't want to go that route. So I was a player coach in the minors, and I was a captain of the Hershey Bears when we won the Calder Cup, and I was hurt. I got really injured bad with a stomach surgery that year. It was a long year. I was with the Colorado Avalanche, and then that ended in Hershey with the whole thing. And then I said, I'm done. And I went to Charlotte, and they said, we'd like you to get involved with coaching, and you can play when you want. I said, oh, okay. I said, I'll do that. It was like a men's league. I didn't practice all the time. Like I'd play 1 year, I'd play so many games, and maybe 3 years later I'd play again. And the one thing I regret is the inevitable of I should have packed it in earlier. But it's easy the point is I said that. I said, well, it's always easy to say I would have started my career earlier, but I prolonged the inevitable by coming back and playing just to play, was probably not the smartest thing.
I hear you. But the only way to look back at life and connect the dots really is from the backwards going back. You can't see it when you're in it. So I totally understand that. Mike, my audience is going to fall in love with you in a heartbeat. I guarantee it. Where can the audience find you? Where do you hang out the most? I know you said Facebook. Also, tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, we have a Facebook page called the Hartman Academy group. It's a group, so anyone can come in, and we love to post things even about, other businesses, and not really a sale. We have a handful of people on there, but I have a podcast called The Mike Hartman Show, and it's about stories, mindset, and champion. We're on all the major directories, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music. And so it's called The Mike Hartman Show. And it's really just, we go into these stories. We've had some really good guests on, and it's a lot of fun.
I love it. And you're on Instagram too, correct?
Say it again.
You're on Instagram also, correct?
Yeah, but I don't, you know what? It's funny you said that. I barely go on, but I need to get on more. Mike Hartman 100, but I need to get on more. I'm barely on Instagram, but.
Okay. For the audience listening, if you absolutely love this conversation, which I guarantee that you will, hit up Mike. He won't bite. Hit him up on Facebook. Check out his group. Go check out his podcast. It's unbelievable stories. It's so much fun. All about mindset. It's fun. You're going to have a ton of value come out of it. Say hello to him. Tell him that you saw this conversation and let him know. He's very friendly and he loves you guys.
Well, thanks. Thank you it's been great. You're going to do great with what you're doing. You got a great show, and it's going to be even greater. So
I appreciate you so much, Mike. And I just want to say, you don't shy away from your challenges as they've shaped you, and something I find very relatable and liberating. I want you to know that you are the definition of perseverance, grit, and heart from cultivating a vision, then working and putting every ounce of you into your dream to become a professional hockey player and a Stanley Cup champion. And now obviously paying it forward and helping guide thousands of people coming up today. You're a role model, someone I admire, I appreciate, and I respect very much. I can personally guarantee that your best is yet to come. And I can absolutely promise you this. This is just the beginning of our special relationship. And I can't wait to continue to watch you fly, Mike.
Craig, thank you. I mean, I don't ever look at myself like that, but thanks. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
That was fantastic, Mike.